Is podcasting more, not less popular as a result of changed commuting behavior? Will a search hack help recruiters find black creative talent for agencies? Is video gaming the new battleground for politics? We'll discuss those topics and more on the audio show at the intersection of marketing, media, tech, and popular culture. We call it Disruptive FM. Roll the title.
Driving? No purchase necessary.
It's Disruptive FM. Welcome to Disruptive FM, the culture of business, marketing, media, technology, and pop culture. Brought to you by Microsoft Advertising with your host, Jeffrey Colon.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Disruptive FM, number 71. Thanks for being here. I'm Jeffrey Colon, head of brand studio for Microsoft Advertising. We've got a really interesting show for you. We're going to be joined in a bit by special guest Erin Ashley Simon, TV host and personality in the gaming and esports industry. So let's get to it.
Here are this week's trending topics on Disruptive FM. Plaguecasting.
Podcasting is dead. At least that's the statement from so many as of late. But it's not rooted in any data. And it's simply not true. So what is the real story about audio in the world of COVID-19? The answers may surprise you. During the first couple of weeks of shelter in place, podcast consumption dipped. And of course it did. People weren't commuting. People weren't out for a run or a hike. People were inside, mostly glued to the TV news. But then, as with everything else in life, habits shifted and podcasting listenership not only bounced back, it got bigger. And much of this was because people no longer had commutes, but could listen to programming on their own time and on more than simply mobile devices. Smart speaker listenership increased. Desktop and laptop browser listenership increased too. And the types of listens changed. Out were the hour-plus shows. In were 15-minute dailies. Out were shows on true crime. In were shows on culture. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see why. When every day in America watching the news makes us feel as if we're being robbed and looted by corrupt TV game show hosts mirroring as politicians, the more we want to enrich ourselves in culture and humanity. So it will be interesting to see what continues to grow in audio. Music listenership is also at an all-time high. Again, because music helps us find our soul. So grab a pair of ear goggles and go get lost in transmission.
Trending topics on DFM. Let's grab coffee.
It's clear that agencies struggle with finding and recruiting talent of color despite the best of intentions. Long-standing diversity programs offer a continuous pipeline of junior talent, yet often the excuse is that people are hard to find. While that notion is problematic for several reasons, a group of Portland, Oregon creatives may have found an ingenious search hack that could render that argument moot. Using Google or LinkedIn or Bing, people can create a typical search query, i.e. copywriter, art director, creative director, and include the term CØFFE3, a stylized version of the word coffee, which results in a listing of talent that has put the term on their websites, portfolios, and profiles. The idea first came to Swift copywriter Chelsea Curry around 2 years ago. After attending industry panels and conversations around diversity, she found that the same excuse kept coming up. Recruiters and agency executives couldn't recruit diverse talent because there weren't enough people in the pipeline, or they were hard to find. Curry knew this wasn't true, so she set out to create a search hack for recruiters to use who kept using this excuse. Curry pointed out that LinkedIn's algorithm is another reason the platform isn't working as well for talent of color. It puts the people you're most connected with first. And because advertising is already so exclusive and insular as an industry, the people who haven't had the same connections are just not being seen. According to Curry, the process is straightforward. On LinkedIn, people can go to their own profile page and add CØFFE3 as a new employer using whatever position they currently hold. Additionally, if talent is looking for a new job, they can note that in the entry and the roles they are looking for. At present, about 15 industry professionals have added this term as a new employer. The technique doesn't rely on LinkedIn's API and is a simple search hack. And while it is still in its early stages, we believe at DFM that it's an innovative way for the platform to highlight talent of color. And what if it became a feature and not simply a hack on these platforms? Well, who doesn't love coffee?
Trending topics on DFM. Political gaming.
Gaming. Fundamentally, it's supposed to be an escape from the world, right? It was when I was a kid. I could never have imagined back then that one day people would pack arenas to watch kids play video games, esports. It's the future of spectator sports and culture all mixed into one. Projected to reach almost $2 billion in revenue by 2022. But what if we told you that gaming was also the next frontier for political activism, and that Black Lives Matter as much in games like The Sims as on city streets? That brings us to our special guest. Erin Ashley Simon is one of the top media personalities covering esports and gaming. She used to host a show all about it on Cheddar, and she also talks a lot about the culture of gaming on the Grassroots podcast. So we wanted to speak to Erin about what we can expect from gaming and where it may influence culture next. Erin joined us on Microsoft Teams earlier this week to talk about this important topic. Let's check it out.
Gaming's one of the platforms, just like social media, right? Gaming's one of those platforms where you can tap into anyone and everyone across the board, whatever country they're in, and really be able to highlight the protests or the perspectives. I also think that another thing too with gaming is that it's driven by the youth. The youth is very proactive in terms of their opinions, protesting, becoming activists, really are more upfront in terms of just their own expression, right? Like I said, gaming has always had that social component, whether it started with you sitting next to a friend on the couch and playing, to then playing via Xbox Live and playing online, to now having that social engagement via streaming on Twitch, or being able to, integrating not only the streams from the competitive scene, but then also your own brand, your own content platform. I think that like the typical standards and the whole that we see with, like, for example, traditional sports, right? Traditional sports has a certain infrastructure where the owners can basically dictate what the players can and cannot do. Esports, that's right. These players are massive. These content creators are massive. In a way, they're the ones that are, the young, youthful players and content creators. They're the ones that are leading the industry. So they have more opportunity to speak out, because it's like, part of it, I mean, even though this is kind of like a pros and cons thing, it's just kind of like, what do they have to lose? Because they already have millions of followers. They don't need this company, or they don't need this platform, right? So I think that there's more opportunity for integrating some sort of social activism. So like you could do it via using emotes, you could do it via customizations, right? I think that gaming is one of the biggest and best forms of expression, and it's allowed people to develop the worlds, but then also be able to translate the world on the outside into a somewhat controlled environment. So I feel like gaming is definitely going to continue to be used as a political thing, because you know what? Politicians use gaming as a political thing. Gaming is one of those things that are like sports. It's always going to have politics. At the end of the day, anything that has a lot of money and has business is going to have politics. That's just what it is. And so I won't be surprised.
Erin Ashley Simon, TV host in esports, gaming, and culture on the politics in gaming.
It's Disruptive FM,
Communications.
the business culture podcast.
They say if you listen closely, you can hear the sound of today.
It's Disruptive FM, the culture of business. I'm Jeffrey Colon. Thanks for tuning in. Please reach out to us and give us feedback. Movie or TV show recommendations, recipes, or just to say hello. The Twitter and Instagram handle is @DisruptiveFM. And connect with me personally on Twitter and Instagram @DJGEOFFE. A huge thanks to our sponsor partners for their support. Branding Strategy Insider serves over 50,000 senior level marketers, CMOs, business decision makers every day. It's distributed by partners such as the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Google News, and Forbes. Branding Strategy Insider, the leading resource for thought leadership in brand strategy and brand management. They need to be on your radar. Check them out at brandingstrategyinsider.com. And Iographer. Iographer makes accessories that help you make professional level content with your smartphones. From cases to ring lights to better microphones, they have you sorted. If you need to shoot video now on a budget, you should definitely check them out at iographer.com. In the background, music from Doctorsoul. It's a track called Papale from the Sing It EP. Out now on Midnight Riot.
Disruptive FM presents
Stop! It's the motherfucking remix!
Everything is a remix.
Back in 1992, the band KISS toured for their album Revenge. The band had a chip on their shoulder. They had rocked and rolled all night and partied every day for 2 decades. But a little band out of Seattle called Nirvana changed all that. While Nirvana started playing in front of crowds of 20,000 or more, KISS was barely playing theaters and small arenas in front of 8,000. But many shows barely did that. On opening night of the tour, booked into a venue that held 7,500, KISS played in front of a paying audience of 1,200. Gene Simmons, of course, wanted to make it appear as if the band still mattered and told journalists they had sold out every show on the 30-city tour. That wasn't true, and ultimately the tour was canceled after just a handful of dates because they couldn't sell tickets. No one was interested in hair metal anymore. This past weekend, Donald Trump hosted a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma. A week prior to the event, Trump boasted that there would be 1 million people in attendance. Never mind that Tulsa only has a population of 400,000. But when the event happened, only 6,200 people showed. Trump, in his usual fashion, went out and played his typical set list. Racist, homophobic, and xenophobic material that left the small crowd shouting for more and waving their red hats. Afterward, Trump noted that the arena was packed, although photos showed that was not true at all. So far, no future rally dates have been announced. Trump is to politics in 2020 as hair metal was to music in 1992. In other words, while he thinks he can play the same tunes to the same amount of fans and garner the same reactions from 4 years ago, the crowds have moved on. This time, to the sounds of K-pop instead of grunge. Because everything is a remix. Okay, time for stories bubbling under that you might want to keep an eye on. It's another installment of On the Radar, now brought to you by Insights with Microsoft Advertising.
Here's what's on the radar. Emerging stories we have our sights on. Presented by Insights with Microsoft. Number 1.
In this rarest of service sector recessions, the hardest hit are those depending on big spenders and tippers, bartenders, workers at restaurants and salons. These lower wage earners are among those who cut spending by 30% in the early days of the pandemic, according to economists, as those in the highest income quartile reduced outlays by 36%. But while spending for the lowest earners bounced back with government support, it still hasn't among the wealthy, who aren't tipping any of these service sector jobs as they remain home. And until that changes, service sector workers will likely need more aid.
Number 2.
The pandemic's devastating blow to shopping malls is having a wider impact on the communities they serve. CNBC reports that malls act as economic engines to local governments, providing hundreds or potentially thousands of jobs while financially shoring up the tax base. With as many as a third of U.S. malls at risk of closing within the next year, local governments are dipping into reserves or scrambling to adjust their budgets. A retail analyst expects a record 25,000 store closures this year alone, 60% of them in U.S. malls.
Number 3.
And number 3, an actual insight from Microsoft Advertising. Media spending contracted during the fourth quarter, with advertisers in a panic during the early stages of the coronavirus. But one format remains strong: native advertising. The Microsoft Audience Network has seen a 50% increase in click volume for native ads, with a 14% increase in click-through rate. Driving this traffic has been consumer packaged goods, especially beauty and personal care products, sales of which are up 69%. I guess if the world is coming to an end, you might as well pamper yourself. And you can get nuggets of wisdom like this delivered to you daily. Subscribe to Insights with Microsoft on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. You own a Google Home device? Just say, "Okay, Google, talk to Insights with Microsoft." That's going to do it for another episode, number 71. Special thanks to Erin Ashley Simon for joining us. Next week, for episode 72, we'll be joined by two of my favorite people, John Lombardo and Peter Weinberg from the B2B Institute at LinkedIn. Once again, thank you for your time and attention. We'd appreciate your support in rating, reviewing, and especially subscribing to the show. We're on all the podcast platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. One more time, the socials: Twitter and Instagram @DisruptiveFM. And check out cool content from our sponsors at MicrosoftAdvertising.ai, BrandingStrategyInsider.com, and iographer.com. From everyone here at DFM, I'm Jeffrey Colon. Remember, all Black lives matter. We'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to Disruptive FM with Microsoft's head of brand studio, Jeffrey Colon. All thoughts are his own. Disruptive FM is produced in Los Angeles by Feeler Media.